They get pressured by their clients. I know some pilots, and they've actually had to tell CEOs of companies, listen, one of them, and it's hard to do.
Okay. I brought my own because I wasn't sure, so just in case. And Rustin, no, memo, I have hard copies. Should I pass those around or?
I usually send it to you. I mean,
Okay. I have them. Yeah, so I don't know. If you emailed them.
do you want me?
A hard copy, meaning not a digital, not a electronic file of the Rustin and the negative declaration, which I think you have. Okay. You know what, I'll give it to you. Okay.
That was Skibitsky. Yeah, that's fine.
Talking to yesterday, I was talking to I think questioning whether he might get in
Yeah. So it's not, I'm just not sure.
That's why I mentioned it's true. I said, well, that's the reason you guys have that league.
Great.
All of a sudden, everybody's something. Good. Yeah.
7:35. Come on, guys.
Yeah, both of them.
I'm not gonna stay. Did I send it in?
Hey, I was just
Oh, absolutely. No, it's good. No, he did text me, and maybe he texted you too. He said that it pushed to tomorrow because of breaking news or something. Oh, did they? Okay.
No, that's from that was Russ and that she melted it. No, you have it.
Oh, it's on right.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, you have it, right? Barney brought those.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome all to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Town of Montgomery Planning Board for January 27th, 2020. There are agendas and a copy of the public hearing notice for Ghizzarelli on the front table for anyone who would like to follow along. What I'd like to do to start tonight is we have a resolution here honoring William J. Kelly Jr. from Garling Associates, Leslie Dotson and Edwin J. Garling. Whereas the planning board of the town of Montgomery notes with regret the retirement from the board of longtime member William J. Kelly Jr. and the retirement of longtime professional planning consultants Leslie Dotson and Edwin J. Garland. And whereas William J. Kelly Jr. has served the planning board in the town of Montgomery for multiple terms spanning more than 48 years, serving as planning board chairman for 26 of those years. And whereas Edwin J. Garling and Leslie Dotson of Garling Associates have been the town's planners for close to a combined 40 years. And whereas over this period of time, the town has experienced substantial growth, which has required the guidance and expertise of these dedicated individuals. And whereas that guidance and expertise now is reflected in many areas of the town outside of its villages. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Town of Montgomery Planning Board hereby recognizes William J. Kelly Jr., Leslie Dotson, and Edwin J. Garling for all of their many years of quality service to the planning board and to the residents and property owners of the town of Montgomery. And be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be affixed to the official minutes and be spread upon the record of this meeting held this 27th day of January 2020. So can I have a vote to pass that resolution by Rich, seconded by Ryan? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We have 10 minutes for comment session, but not to include that, we have 3 letters here. One from Leah Westcott, one from John Lown, and one from Nina Snyder, expressing their concern about the moratorium and the interest in us delaying any approvals for project until a moratorium is finalized. So that's for the record. Now we get into 10 minutes of comments for items not on tonight's agenda. If you could please raise your hand. Yes, Mary Ellen?
Good evening.
Hi.
Sorry. Okay, I have two quick things. One is good news. One is that the Pomeroy Foundation approved the historic marker for ponds at Montgomery. See, that's on the agenda. The town will be ordering the plaque from the foundry. There's no rush. When you let the town know when the property owner will be ready to do that. It doesn't, as long as it's in the works, it's fine. But I just wanted you to be aware that an approval was given for that marker. We're also requesting a planning board member to join the Climate Smart Task Force. So if somebody is interested, we would appreciate them participating. They should contact Patricia Hennigan at the CAC, because the task force is operating under the CAC right now. And we think it would be important because so many of the climate smart initiatives, which now this year's push is for heat smart geothermal and air heat source units. So these are things that you would want really to talk to applicants about. And so the more well-versed you are in it, the better it's going to be. So we would like that. I also have a packet here that I'm going to give to Rich Hoyt. I pulled the deed today for Matrix Maple. And I'm asking for clarification on this deed. It was January 25th, 2019. There was a survey done by Langton Tully. I sort of feel like I kind of missed the train on this, but at any rate, the HPC is going to start working on the cemeteries, and so I'd like some clarification on what went on here. On page 2 of 4 in the Langton Tully survey, they're describing, maybe it's page 3, hold on. Yeah, sorry, page 3 of 4. They're describing the parameters of the 59 acres that the PIM sold to Matrix Maple. In terms of the cemetery and the borders of the cemetery, and it seems like they've gone right up to the walls of the cemetery. And that's not the half acre that is in the deed or that was in the title search that was done. That's the cemetery walls only enclose 0.12 acres. You know that, right, Rich?
I'll look at it, man.
Okay, so then could you get back to me on that, please?
I'll look at it and then talk to the board about it, and maybe I'll get back.
Well, I'd like to know for sure if I'm reading this correctly or not, because the HPC is going to start doing some issues about the cemeteries.
I understand.
And making recommendations to the town board. Thank you.
Okay. Donnie?
Hello, everyone. Don Berger, Montgomery. I have two things I just briefly want to talk about. You know, Medline here has hit the newspapers once again, and I'm really troubled by some of the ads that they put in the paper, and I think they're misleading. I don't think this is the direction they should take. On Sunday, January 19th of 2020, they put this ad in the paper claiming, and boldly claiming, 1,000 jobs that will be coming to our town. Well, we follow that up on January 22nd with another ad, and this has been an ad that's been running in both the Walko Valley Times and the Times Herald Record, and running quite often, and they talk about what we are aware of, the 350 jobs. So I just think that it's very misleading, and I think the board members got to really understand who we're dealing with. That is not what I think is what they've said all along, how they're going to be friends of this community by putting ads out like that. Secondly, I'm also going to talk about the moratorium, and I'm going to request that this board understand and know the direction that this town is attempting to take, and that any future developments that you might consider that might come before you, or the ones that are presently before you, to consider the will of the residents, and not only residents, we're talking about the BC School District and other entities. And I just believe that any decision-making that you people that come before you should be delayed until after that the town board has made a decision on what they're gonna do about that moratorium. And I also have a bunch of letters to submit, Fred.
Okay. Anyone else would take one more? Karina?
Hi, Karina Tipton, Village of Montgomery. I understand that the 915 Bracken Road warehouses are on the agenda, but I also understand that the public hearing period is closed. And so I just wanted to make a quick note on that application. The agenda says to discuss a negative declaration on that project, and one thing that the moratorium, I think the request for moratorium that the town and village residents have been discussing for over a year now. We've been making this request of the town board in particular for over a year now. Has to do with the fact is that this planning board does not have the tools to adequately evaluate the projects that are in front of it. And in the case of 915 Bracken Road, there's no noise ordinance at the town level. And I understand that there was a noise study that was done. I also understand that it was done at a very quiet period in December. And it came in after the public hearing was closed. I understand, and you have explained to us, Mr. Hoyt, that we do have an opportunity to submit letters after the public hearing has been closed, which is very nice, but it doesn't give us an opportunity to truly feel like we're able to evaluate all the new information that is coming in, and particularly in the case of the 950 Bracken Road warehouses, which cumulatively will add up to be over 100,000 square feet of warehouses, are speculative, are virtually across the street from a school, are immediately adjacent to and across the street to residential neighborhoods, and which have got a new noise ordinance, a new noise study that has come in lieu of a town noise ordinance. There's no discussion for nuisance noises for warehouses that are adjacent to residential areas. I feel that you as a planning board do have an opportunity to say, and perhaps an obligation to say at this point, we don't have the tools to evaluate the impact of this warehouse project to our community. You do have also the opportunity to say that you're going to make a declaration with very severe restrictions on the warehouse uses that would benefit the schools, that would benefit the residential neighbors. I haven't really heard those discussions from this board in the time that I've been coming. I've heard a reluctance of the board to have any clarity around the operational hours. You look to the applicants to say when they're going to be operating. This board does have a lot of latitude in terms of how you are directing the growth of businesses in this corridor of Montgomery. Right now we have a monoculture of warehouses. We have an area that people call the Neelytown corridor. People that live next to Neelytown don't want a corridor of monoculture right next to them either. And now we're seeing that spreading out across the entirety of the town. I'm asking this board, in light of the claims, the requests of the town for moratorium, in light of the fact that there is a comprehensive plan in process right now, we finally have got a process that we're talking about that will get this board the tools you need to do your jobs without all the stress and annoyance from us here in the audience. Please consider that as you look to your determinations tonight, and think about whether or not it's truly necessary at this time that you move forward with these warehouses. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, audience. We'll go to our first our first public hearing for this evening, which is Gizzarelli Bailey Road, 2-lot subdivision of Lansbury Subdivision Lot 10. This is the initial opening of a public hearing. Representing the applicant is Ross Winglovitz from Engineering Properties. How are you, Ross?
Good evening. Yes, for the record, Ross Winglovitz with Engineering Surveying Properties here on behalf of Lou Gizzarelli for a proposed 2-lot subdivision of his property on Bailey Road in the town of Montgomery. Would you like me to go over the project first?
Yeah, if you could give us a brief summary.
Yep, this lot is one of the large remaining parcels of the original Lansbury subdivision on Bailey Road. It's 42 acres in size. There was one proposed house. Mr. Gizzarelli is an uncle to Mr. a nephew to Mr. Lansbury, and bought the property because he had spent some time there as a child and wanted to keep it. Mr. Gizzarelli has a son who is interested in building a house on that property. What we're proposing is a subdivision to create one new lot. There's already one approved here and one home approved. a new lot that would be for his son in his new home. It's a proposed 4-bedroom residence directly adjacent to Bob Lansbury's property, just directly to the north of that. And then the remaining lands would have one proposed house on it as well, just north of that proposed residence. All the drainage for the site flows from Bailey Road to the north and to the Wallkill. Site distances have been measured for the driveways. They are both adequate. There's been a drainage study done because this was part of the larger subdivision, and there was a determination that we need to look at the drainage for the entire property. That has been completed. There are some comments that I'm working through with Andrew, and I think that's it. We would need to go to the Department of Health after any preliminary approval from this board, because the entire subdivision was subject to Health Department approval previously. So any new subdivision that has to go back to the Health Department. So this would again go to the Health Department for their review and approval. That's it.
Okay, can I see a hands of people who are here interested in the Ghizzarelli project? If you wanted to come up, and people would be kind enough, there's some chairs up here you could sit at. If you have questions, comments, want to see the plan a little closer, just identify yourself for the record, maybe your address, where you live in proximity to the job, and ask us your questions.
Hi, thank you. My name is Terry Whitebook. I'm the sole owner and widow of Jean Grobstein. My husband and I have owned the property directly next to the proposed building site for the past 33 years. And I object to this subdivision on the grounds that the new home proposal is only 15 feet from my rock wall. The driveway for this new home, if I'm looking at it correctly, is approximately 60 feet long. I brought some pictures of my neighbors' homes with me tonight if you were interested. All of them are further away from the road than 60 feet. I came actually to one of your offices this year for a permit to put solar panels on my property, and I was told I had to be 30 feet from the road to put a solar panel in, but now I'm looking at perhaps having a house that's 15 feet from my property line. So that's my main concern. I'm grateful that there'll only be 2 houses on this large parcel of land, but there's so much land.
Right, why does it have to be so close?
Can't you just move it over a little and back a little?
Okay, thank you. Anyone else with a question or comment on Ghizzarelli?
Why do we need the,
Your name,
hello?
please?
My name is Vera Eichel. I'm adjacent from the lot.
Okay.
Why is there a health approval needed?
The original subdivision had to go to the health department for the septic systems, for the in-the-ground sewage disposal system, the leach fields. So because it had to go originally, any new lot from that has to go also to the health department.
Okay, and why is the lot so small? Why are they proposing it so small when there's 40 acres there? Is there gonna be another subdivision?
No, there's no plan to be
There's
another
no contemplated
subdivision.
subdivision.
No. One lot's 1.2 acres, the other lot is 8.9. 8.1, 8.2, yeah. One's a father, one's a son, Ross, is that correct?
Yep, the father owns the entire property. He is selling the 1.2 acre property to his son. Zoning permits 0.75 acres, so it's a half an acre larger than the minimum required under the zoning. And it's
Okay.
consistent with the remaining lots that were built along Bailey Road as far as size.
And he owns the remaining what? What's the other lot?
There's, this is all the remaining land, so it's total almost 42 acres. So 1.2 acres is gonna be taken out of that 42, so there's roughly over 40.6 acres remaining.
Any reason why they're not making that lot bigger? With that much land
Nope,
left?
that's all his son wants, and that's what he's selling.
Anyone else on Ghizzarelli? Okay, board, any comments?
I see what Ms. Whitebrook is talking about. The corner of the house is only 30 feet away from the stone wall.
Yeah, it's close, yeah. It is something we'll look at. Anyone else? Andrew, you and Ross are working on the drainage?
We looked at this, the third time we looked at it, we had some comments on the drainage that was proposed. Ross and I had spoken on it today, so there's gonna be modifications.
Okay. Anyone else, any comments? I know Richard had, we had everything in order for
The mailings are all good, we just need the affidavit of regularity.
Yeah.
But I see proof was sent to everyone within 300 feet, the 2 farms within 500, and the village of Montgomery.
Leslie also had a comment about the bats, just probably crossed the comment letter, a letter from the DEC, not the bats. The eagles, a letter from the DEC came in, and they discussed the eagles and the fact that the known nest is over half a mile away and they have no likely impact and therefore no further review required. That was sent to the planning board, but I have another copy, probably crossed in the mail.
Okay.
You have that?
I don't know if you want that one. Thank you, Ross.
Yeah, that letter's dated the 17th, I think her review was the 21st, so.
Have you worked out the comments Leslie had sent you, or you still?
Yeah, that was the only thing she had, and then the other issue was about the backyard. We measured from the house to the lot line at the railroad right-of-way. I don't know that she was suggesting we should measure to the river, I wasn't quite sure. So we thought that that was the correct measurement. You can have that. So for the proposed house on lot 2, we had just given a dimension to the lot line that is, where the railroad right-of-way is, as the dimension for the rear yard. I don't know that she was suggesting that we
Go all the way back to
go all the way
the
back
right.
there, but I don't, it doesn't matter to us, whatever you want to do. It's, the other, I think maybe she, in a resolution of that, she said greater than 481 feet or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Covered, so that, but we had this dimension.
I think maybe look at maybe a nicer location for that house a little further away.
So the reason the house is where it is, and it's really there as a placeholder, there's no proposed construction on that house. The house on lot 1 is the one that's going to be constructed for his son. Because what happened in the original subdivision, we actually planned the house right smack in the middle, and we had to relocate that approved house location because we just centered it on the lot, because there was no future plans for the property. When we redid it, we moved it to the side, so that if there was any future subdivision, we would not have a problem having to relocate it again. Most likely, if somebody decided to build a house on that lot, they could easily slide the house to the center. I could do that now, I guess. The septic is over here, so that in the future, I guess it would be a house relocation issue.
That would be preferable, I think, to shift the house, so that would have to come back for a relocation, and we'd have to vet this again. So if that house could be shifted away from the neighbor, we'd appreciate it.
Okay. I'll talk to Mr. Guzzo. Yeah.
Okay.
Right,
Yes.
The first comment in our letter is that the drainage map shows that the lot is to be subdivided to 4 lots. The site plan showed 2 lots. So that's one thing that I thought we should know.
Yeah, I'll be glad to discuss. So the SWIP, because of the issue we ran into, because we had to end up doing a SWIP for all other lots that were subdivided. Lou said, if I'm gonna spend the money doing this, I don't wanna end up in 5 years in the same situation I am now on a plan that was just approved in 2015. So we did the SWIP based on a theoretical further subdivision of lot 2, so that if he comes back 5 years from now and his daughter wants to buy a lot there, he doesn't have to go through doing the SWIP all over again. So we addressed that and not get caught with that situation like we did here.
So for everyone's clarification, this discussion is only about the stormwater. It's not actually being approved as a 4-lot subdivision.
Correct.
So any additional lots than what we're looking at now would be back here, and we'd have to vet this all again.
Correct.
Okay, so working out a few things with Andrew and relocating that house, I guess that's about what we're looking at, right?
Ross and I discussed, we're gonna marry the piece across the railroad, which is landlocked industrial, to the larger of these 2 lots, so that it can't ever be lost for unpaid taxes. Right now, that big piece is married to the entirety of Lot 10, and it wouldn't make sense to marry it to the small piece. It won't even touch it if you approve it.
It's zoned differently too, right?
Correct. And there was a note that we worked out for the Lansbury subdivision. That's been modified to reflect this new plan. The deed restriction would also need to be modified to reflect this re-subdivision.
So aside from that, there's not much. Yes, Terry?
I just have a question. So, if you do move the house over, then will we come back to this board with that new plan for where the house is gonna be situated?
They will come back here.
They will come
with-
back.
Yeah, it won't go out the door like that. It'll go out the door with the house move, so we'll have a chance to go through that and look at it again.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay, seems pretty straightforward. Simple subdivision. Work out some stormwater things, shoot that house over. What does everybody think? Close the hearing? Or do we want it, maybe what we should do is, let's see where that house is gonna be. So Terry can see it, we can all see it, we'll have the drainage worked out, and I think we'll be in much better shape in 2 weeks.
That's fine.
Okay, is that fine with everybody? So, we have a couple of hearings already scheduled for 10. I would suggest that we resume this hearing on February 10th at 8 o'clock. This is a public's notice that that's what's gonna happen. You won't get another notice in the mail. I'll entertain a motion by Rose, seconded by John. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay, we'll see you on the 10th.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up this evening is Medline Montgomery, Medline Industries, Inc., New York State Route 416, SCU permit and site plan. This is a continuation of a public hearing. The applicant's well represented. Larry, if you would like to fill us in on where we stand today?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good evening. Just before I get into where we are, I just want to introduce everybody that's here tonight who's worked on the site plan in case the board has any questions. We have our whole team here for a response. Bonnie's over there, who's principally involved in the environmental impact statement component. And then we have Kelly and Kevin sitting next to her. Kevin's our landscape architect, been working with Karen Aaron. And Kelly, as you all know, is one of our civil engineers. Behind her is Mike. Mike's working on sewer and water and also drainage. And we have our Matt, our lighting guy, who's come in tonight as well. Yeah, we'd like to have everybody here just in case a question comes up.
Okay.
We have the team there to answer it. So tonight we're talking about site plan special permit. We're not crossing over into the FEIS, although acknowledgedly both are interrelated. So where we stand is that, as you're aware, we've received a number of comment memos. we've responded to all those comment memos that had site plan comments, including Garland Associates, Karen Arendt, Mazer Consulting, and we received recently on the 22nd a memo from Planning Board member McGuire, and those comments have been responded to just recently. There's a revised SWIP. There is new data on lighting that's been submitted. There's a revised site plan that's just been submitted. And there is a revised landscaping drawing as well. One of the issues that we've been discussing is the color of the building and the retaining wall. If you're interested in seeing some samples so you could begin to deliberate on that choice, we can show them to you this evening. It's up to you. And that's pretty much where we are on the site plan. It's been an iterative process, meaning that we're whittling down the issues. We believe we're getting close to getting this plan in the form that you want. So unless you have any further questions for me, I'll pass it back to you, and we can continue the hearing.
Okay, thank you. So for everyone's information, we have recently just received all this new information as late as today. So we do have it, and we're in the process of analyzing it to see how it responds to our comments. So needless to say, since we just got it, we're not closing this hearing tonight. This will go out into the future at some point. That they will decide when we finish here this evening. Finish with this discussion this evening. Andrew, you had a couple of points that you wanted to bring up that were important. And I think some of these, I'm sure, have been addressed, if not all, but if you could remind everyone, remind the board.
We got the civil site plans today. When we received them, we started looking at it. We had a 24-page comment letter. A lot of the things in that letter were addressed. But I started going through the entrance, the truck turns, some of the drainage comments that we had, sewer comments that we had, erosion control comments that we had, comments that Planning Board member Jay Beaumont had on the enhanced soil erosion comments. And I saw that a lot of the comments that I did get a chance to look at were addressed. So the next week, we'll be going through and dotting the i's, crossing the t's, making sure everything is addressed, and seeing that there's nothing new. But it was positive anyway, what we had received.
Okay. Bonnie, did you have anything to add, or?
I will be looking at the plans that were submitted to confirm the cross sections as far as visibility that have been submitted. I think we're still going through the lighting, look at the comments to see how those were addressed. Visual, we discussed as far as the building elevations and whether you want to see the swatches and the colors, because at one point there was a discussion, you didn't want the building glossy, nor did you want it to really stand out. You might want a little more earth tone. Retaining wall design, I did send you what we had received as far as different designs for the retaining wall to be more aesthetically pleasing. At the last meeting, we did talk about noise monitoring, and specifically if noise is monitored and for any reason it's determined that there's some exceedance of the monitoring levels, then what happens? Are there mitigations to be able to do that? And the applicant indicated they would provide examples or look into what could be done. And then lastly, I think we were still looking for the cultural resources sign off. A lot of progress has been made. Certain areas I believe went to the phase or stage 3. And so that's just still an item that we're waiting from SHPO for. So those are still items that we're addressing and reviewing.
Thank you. We just went through this exercise so the audience would know where we are in the process, and we are in the process of reviewing all of this stuff. So now we'll open it up to the floor. We'll open up the floor for comments. If you could keep your comments brief, we'd appreciate it, as we are going to get a chance to do this again. Okay, Don?
I'm Berger Montgomery. I'm just bringing up a point of information that I'm not sure whether you guys are aware of, because I was at a planning board meeting at the Village of Montgomery this past week, and there's a project downriver from the Medline project. And at your last meeting here, there was a great deal of talk about the effects on the Wallkill River with the runoff from Medline into the Wallkill River.
Yes.
Well, KSH moved further in the project in the Village of Montgomery, which is just downstream from where Medline is asking to build. My question is, or my hope is that you guys will consider that, find out a little bit more information about KSH, because KSH is not a small project. It is also a very large project. There is one warehouse there, 250,000 square feet, another warehouse, 190,000 square feet, and 2 office complexes, all in the same area, all one project. So what I'm asking for you to guys do is to review that, ask questions to the village, what's going on. Perhaps you need a cumulative study of all of that and the effects on the Wallkill River. That's just a point of information I want to bring to your attention.
Okay. Someone else? Yes.
Good evening. My name is Tom Fallon. I am the Director of Operation at Medline here in Middletown. I want to thank the Planning Board for all your hard work on our site plan. I would also like to reiterate how excited we are about coming to Montgomery and our commitment to be a good community partner in business. With that said, I'd like to clear the record for the different groups that are here tonight and Don and stuff that I've gotten to meet. It is the second thing that was in the paper. Not sure how the communication got mixed, but we've been saying since day one, and we want to be a very transparent company and a good business and a good community partner. It is 350 jobs over 5 years, taking us to 700 jobs within 5 years. That's been what we've said since day one, and that is what we continue to say. I apologize for the paper. Didn't have control over that, but I will follow up and address that. With that said, we look forward to the next steps in moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on Medline? Yes. Everyone.
Good evening. I do have a letter that I will submit, but I'm just going to read a part of it.
Okay.
As of this date, today, the 27th, there are some issues that still need to be done for this Medline project. One of them being, when I was looking on the only ones that I had available, the only site plans that were available online, was the November 15th ones. And there was a problem that I spotted, and I'm not an engineer, I don't know anything that much about it, but there was no retaining wall shown on protecting a section of wetlands on the northwest side of the proposed building. So is this going to run directly into the wetlands? And is there enough buffering there? And also the problem with the rate and flow into the Wallkill River. That is a huge problem that needs to be addressed. I'll give you the rest of this letter.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else with comments from Medline? Site plan? Yes. Sheree?
Hi, good evening, board. My name is Shariza Hakis. I thank the Medline representative for stating that it was an error for those 1,000 jobs. I would also ask, like Medline, who has now broadcast that across much of the publishing area of the, the Times Herald Record, that they pay as much attention in the public retraction of that statement. I feel that it's an offensive thing, and it's very hard for the public to fight non-truths or urban legend. So I request that to be done formally in the Times Herald Record, and I understand there's a financial amount, but I do request that. I also state, I understand that the IDA, and you're not the IDA board, I'm very clear on that, but in the original application in the IDA, which has been retracted, and I respect that, the number of jobs that are being touted now do not match their original prognostications. Much of their work was being brought in, and it was about 340 mass employment, and some of them to be brought in, hopefully retained from the Middletown area. Their growth was at only 167 new employees over 2 years. So I would just like to state that for that as their original facts. So I'm also curious if they could answer where the change comes into up to 700 people. I think that's critical because we talk about employment in the area, and I'll be succinct, the jobs, and I understand they're looked after, they buy into benefits like most other people that work for their medical, their coverage. They pay their 401ks and their matches. But again, somebody making it $32,000 to $35,000 a year really doesn't have the money for a 401k, having lived that life. So again, I find some of those problematic, these numbers, and I also, again, I thank the board for the time in Medline.
Anyone else? Yes, hi.
Hi, I'm Blair Klein. I'm with Medline. I wanted to thank Tom for coming up and clarifying the employee numbers. Tom, who is our Director of Operations here and leads our team, and we have a lot of other local team members here. We have Pete and Alan and Daryl, and I really appreciate everything that they've been doing to help run the current Middletown facility as a member of our community for more than 15 years. Also, we very much care about the community, and we would never ever mislead you. I want to make sure, we've been working a lot, and I have a lot of respect for Don, and I want to make sure I know he's a man of integrity, that we also are. So I thought I could clarify some of this. Currently today, we have 420 team members at our facility that Tom leads. That includes all of our MedTrans and distribution center employees. This project is anticipated to hire at least 350 more over a 5-year span, probably more given the growth of the healthcare industry and the needs of healthcare in this area. In addition, I think that some of the confusion is coming from the 500 indirect jobs that will be created by this project: construction, electric, utilities, landscaping, and so that tips us over that 1,000. The advertisements, I think, that were referenced here, we're trying to get a kind of more clear number specifically around team members, whereas I think in the early days we were trying to show the full economic impact. But again, we do have 420 jobs that we're trying to keep here in Orange County today, and I hope that at least brings some peace of mind that we're not trying to mislead you in any way. So as much as you might like your retraction, I think, will this suffice for you? Because those are the numbers. Does that work for you?
Yeah. Am I allowed to respond?
Sure.
Okay. Well, I do appreciate that, and my assumption too was logically they were the labor union jobs in the various aspects of jobs that are satellite to the core job. The public doesn't realize that. So the general public that Medline is trying to make understand, and I'm not saying that you're not being valid in what you're saying from the aspect of your understanding, but to be an observer outside of your central knowledge, I think it is not transplant and misleading.
I appreciate that, and so I think we can have absolute clarity. So for just clarification tonight, we have 420 existing team members here in Orange County at the Middletown Waiwayando plant that Tom leads. We anticipate at least 350 more hired over the first 5 years. Some of you may actually have remembered the hiring event we did recently as part of our effort to hire 2,000 more employees throughout the country just based on that growth. I'll make the commitment that we will be very clear in what's direct jobs as employee and indirect. The 500 indirect jobs account for all of the work to actually build the facility. I also wanted to thank both the community members for being very transparent in their own concerns. I think it's created a good conversation here, and I wanted to thank all of you for the 18 months of work that you've put into this and we continue to put in. We are doing everything we can to dot our I's and cross our T's for you and keep these jobs here and help grow the county and the town. And doing so in a site that's an ideal location for a distribution center based on zoning and based on location is our intent. We do want to be a good neighbor, so we appreciate the continued conversation, and I hope we can continue it.
Okay, thank you. Yes. Good.
Fred Mertz, Village of Montgomery, and I want to thank Medline for clarifying the error in the paper and their openness to all this. And I'm kind of like a numbers guy, and kind of like thinking how big they really are in just the warehouse alone of 1.3 million square feet. So that according to the DEIS, they have 56 acres of impervious, including the building and everything else. So at 43,560 square feet per acre, that comes out to 2.4 million square feet of impervious. So that means that we have an aquifer, runoff, everything else is going to be affected by all of this. That nobody, I don't even know if anybody did it. What is the hydraulic effect of all that impervious property that's going to be there on top of an aquifer? I mean, water level will seek a certain height before it starts to spread out. So where is that water going to go? I haven't seen any answer or anything else. It's just simple hydraulics. So, and also a letter, I encourage you not to make a hasty decision with the town board devising plans for a comprehensive plan. The town board is also drawing up the wording for a moratorium and making a decision on the biggest projects without any input from the committee for a comprehensive plan would hinder their progress to derive a simple plan that would appease both the community which you serve and projects wanting to develop here. Wisdom and discernment would be a prudent choice to make.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes. Bless you. Hi.
Hi, Wendy Curtis, Montgomery. I keep bringing up air quality, and I'm just wondering if anybody's actually talked to Medline or Maureen about whether or not there's any possibility whatsoever of them becoming manufacturing as well in the near future or any future. Has anybody actually asked or inquired?
On manufacturing, they've committed to not manufacture.
They have. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, Karina?
Hello. I just brought up, I had some comments on the site plan dated December 4th, and I'm not sure how they've been addressed. I haven't seen any of the revised documents. So I just wanted to just refer back to these comments. In the draft environmental impact statement, the applicant refers to the New York State Stormwater Manual and the statement that a fifth order stream does not require mitigation measures, specifically for downstream impacts. And I understand that's been a big topic of conversation at some of the consultants meetings and work sessions, which I've been unable to attend because I work in New Jersey. So basically, I just wanted to bring that point up again and just reinforce that the New York State Stormwater manual does say that a class 5 stream doesn't require that, but it also says, and I'm just looking for that specific, it does state that a downstream analysis is recommended for overbank and extreme flood control for larger sites, i.e. 50 acres or greater, and facilities in the context of a larger watershed. The site has a pre-build condition of 103 pervious acres and build conditions of 57 impervious acres. This is all based on draft environmental impact statement data, so it may be slightly inaccurate at this point. The site is, the Wallkill River watershed is significant, encompassing over 800 square miles in New York and New Jersey. Most of the Wallkill River watershed is in New Jersey, so it's flowing from New Jersey to New York and then north from there. So all of that watershed is behind it, but it still does have a pretty significant watershed area. And also considering the fact that the site is located in and adjacent to a special flood hazard area, with the flooding on 416 that we've talked about a bunch, I do think if they haven't done this already, as you're evaluating the updated SWIP, I do think that requirements for stream channel protection, overbank flood control, extreme flood control, those should not be waived, as they have been in the past for a 5th class stream. Thank you.
Anyone else on Medline before we take board comments? Yes.
Hi, Beth Hefner, Montgomery, New York. I haven't seen the latest statements on the environmental impacts, but as we look at them, and I would encourage you to make them public as soon as possible so we could review them. I'd like to look at the volume as well as the rate of the water that's going to run off. It seems that only one of those gets addressed. And also, are we going to monitor the air around the plant? Will there be ethylene oxide? And if so, how will we be assured that there won't be an accident like there was at their other plant, which poisoned a lot of the residents in the area? Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, board, any comments on Medline? Any questions? Yes, Rich?
I was wondering whether we were going to be seeing a new plan set, full-size plan set. It's almost impossible to read the visual and landscaping pages that are only this size instead of a full-size sheet. They're unreadable.
To make us submittal.
We submitted them electronically today, but we can send paper copies.
Please, I can't deal with that on my computer, full size.
Okay. Anyone else?
I'm sorry, I have one more small thing to say.
Okay.
And I'll email you this as well, but just with respect to the updated visual aspects and lighting aspects for the Medline Warehouse, and I'll pass this around and I'll also email this, but this is just a Google Maps cross-section that I did over the summer, comparing a line of sight from the Medline Warehouse with the approximate height of the building across the height of the village. And the top of the Medline building is going to be taller of almost every structure in the village of Montgomery. And I just wanted to point that out. I'll send you guys this. It's not done very scientifically, but we just wanted to pass it down the line and take a quick look. I'll also email you the file. Thank you.
Okay.
I just use Google Maps. I dropped on the building, I scaled it off. It's like arts and crafts.
Did you take a couple to see if this was the highest profile, or did you just go right down the middle?
I did take a couple. I took one along Route 211 just for the roadway, and I kind of angled it around, and that is, I think that was the tallest.
To see like the high point is.
Yeah. I'm not exhaustive, but I angled it around a little. And then I just dropped some screenshots of people's houses in.
Using just the village?
Yeah, I only, that highlighted line is the transect that I showed you.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, I only did it in that direction because that's the direction I live in, so. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
view to the north. You're basically looking to the north here.
Just that line that's going from the building, which yellow line here? Yeah, you're looking from here to there, and that matches up approximately with the elevation.
I've been concerned about the view from I-84 and trying to.
Yeah, in the other
get that.
direction, it's definitely also a concern. The only, I did look at 84 to just kind of gauge the elevations, but Google Maps doesn't really have the elevation of 84 in it to do that transect on, so I didn't want to approximate it too much.
Yeah, I happen to have a map, contour map.
Point of order? Yeah, can you have, this person, Karina, tell us whether her conclusion based on this unscientific visual study, is that the building can be seen from the village?
I'm happy to tell you my conclusion. My conclusion is that as a village resident, I'm not as concerned about the height of the building and the building being immediately visible, but I am concerned about the impacts from light and noise. And because there are no physical obstructions between the top of the building or even the loading bays and many of the houses in the building, there's very little ways to mitigate the light or the noise impacts from the building's operation.
Thank
That's
you.
my conclusion.
Thank you. That clarifies it for us.
My pleasure.
Anyone else, any other board member? Yeah, Ryan?
Yeah, if we can, I mean, they brought the samples of the building colors, and I think we should take a look at those, everyone else. Also see
Yeah.
those.
Hi, Ryan Donaldson from Kinley Horn. I brought this, I also showed it to the folks who were at the consultants meeting last week. But from the architect, we received paint samples, or I guess it's paint, color samples for the building of the blue, the gray, and two grays, and the, what appears to be white, but it's actually an off gray as well. I'll pass this around. And this is the rendering that was in the EIS. And the other sample that's on there, there's a piece of metal that's in aluminum window frame. Just so you can feel safe speaking here. And at the workshop, it was discussed about the primary color of the building. You know, the majority of the area will be a light gray. And the board members who were there requested that perhaps some other alternative grays could be shown. So the architect subsequently sent me these. Unfortunately, they're very small, but these are two other colors for the main body of the building.
Grays again, sure.
So you can compare them to each other, you can keep the board. The only other point I wanted to make was that the colors have all been approved by Medline. Obviously, as I said, the blues and the grays, there's a dark gray, a light gray, and then the body, which is a lighter gray. Landscape architect Karen Arndt made comments on the landscape plan, also commented on the colors, and that she would be favorable to a gray as opposed to, say, a brown or other kind of an earth tone. So you can deliberate on those, and as I said, I'll leave them with you.
Okay, and maybe if we can leave them displayed for the audience also somewhere? A good idea, just in front, or maybe on the easel.
Brett, I just had a question on that.
Sure.
The windows, are they proposed to have like reflective tinting or anything like that? And then the truck bays, what color were the doors if there's no trucks parked in front of them?
Did you hear that?
I don't think she heard.
I did not.
Could you
That's fine.
repeat that?
Sure.
Yep.
I just had a question on the window glazing, if it's gonna have like a reflective tint or anything, and then also the color of the proposed truck doors. if there's no
Don't know
trucks
the
parked
answer
there.
about the truck doors and the glazing. Unfortunately, we had a sample of that too, but I don't think we brought it. But we'll get to that to the town hall as well.
Okay. And then the walls as well, right?
The retaining walls.
Kelly, did you bring?
Yeah, I brought additional copies of what was provided, and I think, was maybe already dispersed, but I can give you a copy of that too.
Okay, board, anything else on Medline for this evening? I think we're all set. Okay. As we work through these items, it is our intention to get you the final environmental impact statement as soon as we get it complete. We're working on that. We needed this round of new site plans in order to get to that point. So hopefully that will be first. It will have to be first. And then the site plan, we'll hear that again on the 24th. So that being said, I'll entertain a motion to continue this hearing on Medline on February 24th at 7:30. We have nothing else that night. This will be everyone's notice. You won't get I see it in the paper, although it may get circulated around. Noticed by John, seconded by Rose. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And thank you, everyone.
I don't think it's necessary to keep it there.
What?
Because it's got to be in your shot. This one in particular. I mean, they could look at it anywhere. They don't have to come up here. Being that everybody's pretty much left.
The only thing is I don't get everybody on that side.
There's one way to clear the room, huh? Everybody, you know what everybody's here for, huh? I think you can move this like out of there altogether. Just don't get into his shot.
The board's easel.
They've already passed it around, and Medline's done for the night. What's that? Oh, the easel might be from the whole town hall. I don't know.
Can I just take one last photo of that? Okay, thank you.
Just drop.
Now this other project here,
Just letting you know. Everybody. Which project? The next one? Is that the next one? Yeah, that's, oh, I don't know. I don't know about this one. This one has been ongoing. That's the one, yeah, this one first though. You have to do this. You still have to do this one. And then this one is the one at the end of Bracken Road. That's near Lakeview and that neighborhood by Berea. It's at the end of Bracken Road. That's been here going back and forth. Well, yeah, and there's, yeah, and Bracken Road is the new Neely Town.
a friend of mine lived in Jersey, he said they did in Jersey. Residential on this side, and that was the end.
That's why we need a new comprehensive plan, a new zoning, because it's so...
We're in a bad place, we're in a good place, but a bad place.
Hey, look at me, I'm like in Maybrook, and they're going behind the storage unit on Neely Town Road and coming into Maybrook. That's another project. It's not tonight. The roads, but, you know, I'm already on top of Yellow Freight, so I hear Yellow Freight, now we're going to have them right on top of us too. We're going to be like, you know, so, getting ready to sell the house. Yeah.
Next on our agenda this evening is Russell Factory Finishing, Durability LLC, on Bracken Road. SCU permit site plan, lot line change. Initial presentation. Representing the applicant is Tom Ollie. How are you, Tom?
I'm well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The project that we're presenting to you this evening is a 20,000 square foot building. It's a non-nuisance industrial building to be located on the north side of Bracken Road, next to the town's property where the fire pump station is located. And it's kind of a repeat or a redo of a project that this board approved in 2002, just a little bit smaller version. And the project parcels are, actually there's two parcels that comprise the site. About a 9.6 acre parcel that is situated on the bend in the road at the very eastern end of Bracken Road. And it's 160 Bracken Road. It's a big green building that at one point did house Russin Factory Finishing. The second parcel is about a 3 acre parcel that surrounds the town's fire protection pump system and actually contains part of the town's storage bond for that fire suppression system. So the first order of business that we will have for the board is that we really need to do a lot line change. The 3 acre parcel is encumbered by wetlands and wetland buffers, as well as easements for the town. And there's also another easement that is in favor of the property to the west of the subject parcel. The existing 40,000 square foot building on the bend of the road, the property line extends about 2/3 of the way or 3/4 of the way across the map. And what we're looking to do is shift this back over to the east and divide off about 5 acres, or make that lot a little over 5 acres for the 40,000 square foot existing building that's there, and then use the balance for the proposed 20,000 square foot new building. as I stated, the proposed use is for Russin Factory Finishing. And Russin Factory Finishing is a part of Russin Lumber, which is located about a quarter of a mile, a third of a mile to the east, or to the west on Bracken Road. And Russin Lumber is the parent company, and they're a wholesale lumber distributor. Currently, Russin Factory Finishing, RFF, is located at a facility in Maybrook that is being rented. And their lease will expire in July of 2021. So our goal is to have them up and running well before that lease expires. The property is very flat. It has so-so soils on it, and it's also encumbered, as I said, by wetlands and some easements. The existing conditions plan shows you all of those. The wetland is actually, the main body of the wetland is north of the property and extends all the way out to Route 17K. Between the Lakeview pump station and the former Morse property, there is a little stream that does connect the town's pond with that wetland, and there's a 100-foot regulated adjacent area that is alongside that wetland. That's shown in the crosshatch on the property. We've already had the DEC out and flagged the wetland, validated it, and we have the validation, stamped validation map. And we've gone one step further, and that is to talk to Mike Fratz about any potential permitting issues, because the lot is so flat and there's very little relief on it so any drainage work that we have to do is going to be next to the pond and the wetland. So what we're proposing is a 20,000 square foot building, 100 by 200, located in the central portion of the site with single access from Bracken Road, just to the east of the town property. There'd be a parking area for the employees just off of that road, and then there is a fairly extensive paved area for the loading and unloading of the trucks. The actual loading and unloading of the trucks doesn't require the large paved area, but since we can really only do one access out here, practically, we needed a little bit more area back in this area and in the front here to actually turn vehicles around, so that so that kind of leads me right into the traffic. And as I said, it's a replacement of a facility in Maybrook, and that facility employs 5 people. They would all be transferred to this. It's a big transfer, only 2 miles away. And the potential growth is to, they figure 11 or 12 employees at some point in the future as the facility's sales would grow. There would be 1 to 2 trucks per day, in and out, because what they do is they bring the lumber from the Leonard's Drive site right now over to Maybrook, and they don't have, well, let me take a step back. RFF is, what they do is they will prime dimensional lumber, and they'll also stain or paint wood siding. Those are the 2 major products that they provide. and they don't run truckloads or railroad car loads of any one particular line, so they will truck 1 or 2 trucks over to the facility. The materials are stored inside because they need to be climate controlled for the finishing process, and then the same 1 or 2 trucks will take the finished lumber back to the Leonard's Drive site, where they'll be put on the proper orders and shipped out in the larger trucks. So we're one of the effects of this is that it will actually take a couple vehicles out, a couple trucks out of the 208 Bracken Road intersection and internalize them. So they're not going to be going out there and then coming back in. They'll just stay within this 1/3 mile of the site. So that covers the number of employees and the traffic. The site is in the town's 2B water district and in sewer district number 2. 2B is strictly a fire protection district, and we will avail ourselves of being in that district, and this building will be fully sprinklered. The sewer is another story. We've been in the sewer district 2 since the inception, and unfortunately the nearest connection is 1,000 or 1,100 feet to the west. In Bracken Road, our only access would be to build a line in Bracken Road. And for initially 5 employees or 11 employees, we're talking about, even at 11 or 12 employees, we're talking about less than 150 gallons of wastewater. And the cost to construct a sewer force main down Bracken Road for this one property would be prohibitive. There's a lot of shale in the area, so it's not unreasonable to assume that the cost of that is going to be at least $100 a foot to construct a sewer line. So you're talking about $100,000 or more to construct a sewer line down there for this property. Now, I will make the same statement that I made 17 years ago, 18 years ago on this property. The owner is willing and will connect into the town sewer as soon as it's practically available, feasibly available to them. I know that there are a couple other development projects in the area. If they should come to fruition, at least one of them, maybe building a line down Bracken Road in this vicinity, and we'd be more than willing to hook into it. Back when we did the original design here, we found that even though most of the soils on the site are C and D group soils, there is a pocket of very good sandy loam in this, or gravelly loam in this area, and we did test pits down to 6 feet. We had perk rates of about 2 minutes for that, so we know that there's soil there that will support it, and but we don't want to be in the. We'd rather be part of the town sewer district if the line is feasibly there for us to feasibly connect to. The project, as I said, will require, and we had some discussions with Mike Krutz, we are proposing that the stormwater system be constructed in the adjacent area. And because that wetland takes a big horseshoe around here, there's a lot of area that is kind of in the middle of that horseshoe. We're going to keep it as far to the east as possible, and the only disturbance would be to the adjacent area, not to the wetlands proper, and it would only be for storm drainage. No impervious surface, no building, no other facilities, no sewer facilities of that like. Now, there is one area that I want to point out, because somebody will ask a question, there's a low area that will sit between the two buildings, and that's an area that floods seasonally. And the DEC has made the determination that there's no direct hydraulic connection, and going back to the original project, the Army Corps and the DEC at that point also had agreed there's no direct hydraulic connection, so it's just an isolated pocket. Now, I'd love to call up the Army Corps, have them come out and tell us, give us a jurisdictional determination on that, but I was told in November by the Army Corps that they have been told not to do just straight jurisdictional determinations. The last one that we did about a year and a half ago, or I'm sorry, 3 years ago, took a year and a half for them to get a determination on it. Now they've been instructed by their higher-ups that only do PCNs, pre-construction notifications. So we kind of have a slippery slope here that if we submit this as a PCN and a disturbance when it's non-jurisdictional, we're afraid that we would be, we would almost deem ourselves to be a wetland when it's not. So that we're a little concerned about that, and we're not sure exactly how to work through a situation where our wetlands expert and the DEC have said it's not connected. It's isolated, but we can't get a JD, and even if we could, it would be a year and a half or more, based on our last experience with the Army Corps. So I want to just get that out on the table at this point, because it may become the elephant in the room, if you will. We would be willing to submit a PCN type of notice to them. We don't believe that it's a regulated wetland and or just jurisdictional area, and see where it goes from there. But there's no guarantee that they would act on it. So the just so you know, we would have about a quarter of an acre that we're moving over here, and that is because the one difference that we had in the 2002 delineation of the Army of the state wetland and present is that the DEC wants to clearly show the 100-foot buffer that would surround the pond. And if you go back to the original map, the 2001-2002 maps, the DEC had to show it as a 100-foot pond buffer, but they just want to show it as this time as part of the wetland. So we do need an Article 24 permit. We know that. We're prepared to do that. In fact, we've had the initial discussions with them. There's no other permits that would be required other than a driveway permit from the town. We're about 150 gallons per day septic, so we really, the only other obvious thing is that we're over an acre of disturbance, so we'll have to comply with the stormwater regulations and prepare a full stormwater pollution prevention plan.
Okay, thank you. So they paint lumber, raw lumber?
Yes.
In the building?
Yes.
And they stain trim or?
Not trim, but the exterior siding.
Oh, you said that,
yeah,
siding,
yeah.
Okay. They stain siding.
I do not believe that they handle trim.
Yes, it's right, more structural.
Yeah, it's really just painting of a product that they're getting in a unit, whereas a trim, there's, a lot of those places are actually doing the milling of the trim board.
And, it all comes from Leonard's Drive, probably single axle truck?
No, by tractor trailer.
Oh, it is?
They'll bring over tractor trailer load
Okay.
at a time. So 48-foot flatbed.
Anyone else, any questions for it? Yeah, Rich?
Tom, I wasn't clear about the existing building on the corner, the 90-degree bend on Bracken Road. Are they using, painting that building?
No, no. In the letter that I submitted, I tried to explain the evolution, and that building was built in 2002. The economy went south, the building economy went south very hard in 2007, 2008. So in 2008, they stopped the finishing in that. And they subsequently have rented it out. And it's no state secret or security secret, but the New York State Department of Homeland Security is occupying the building. And they have a long-term lease, and so we can't give them the boot. And so they're looking at, they're sitting on this property, they'd rather own it, own a building than rent it. So this will remain as it is the storage, and there'll be no production facility in there, and if it did change, then that applicant would have to come back. So part of that is separating. There are 2 parcels now, but just moving that lot line over, so that one remain. That would be a separate parcel.
Are they selling the building, the 5.6 acres, or are they just leasing it?
This is owned by Jorad Realty, which is Barry Russin. He will retain that. We may have created a little bit of confusion with the EAF because we refer to Adjor Realty. Adjor Realty will be a company that will be formed to purchase this after the subdivision and site plan and buildings constructed. So Jorad will own both parcels, separate parcels, until the time that the building is separated, and then Barry will sell his interest to his 2 sons that run the business now, Adam and Jordan. So it's been a family-run business for over 40 years up here. Barry's father started with him. It's actually where Leonard's Drive came from. Probably Rich is about the only one that would know that.
Yeah, John, you had a question?
Yeah, Tom. The raw materials is local, right? It comes from Leonard's Drive. When it's finished, what's the process of it's not staying in the building, right?
No, it actually goes back to the Leonard's Drive facility, and then the orders are made up for shipment from the Leonard's Drive facility out with other products that may be in any particular order. So they don't just do factory finished lumber. They have raw lumber, dimensional lumber in the other facility. So Builders ProSource may call up and need so many thousand square feet of Western red cedar siding, stained, some weathered gray or something. That's not a full truck, but they're also ordering 2x12s, 2x10s, other dimensional lumber. So it just gets repackaged at the other facility and sent out.
So for sequencing, so I'm clear, Leonard's Drive to this facility for finishing.
Yep.
Drying, whatever, kiln, goes back to Leonard's Drive for storage.
Yes.
It doesn't remain in this facility.
No. It's very short term in here, just a matter of days. And you did mention drying, and the drying is all air dry. There's no kilns or anything in the facility, and everything is low VOC. Low VOC compliant finishes, whether they be water or oil based or low oil based.
Similar to the building when they used to finish
Yes.
in that.
Yes.
As I do recall. Okay.
Yes, exactly. Just this building will be about half the size of the other. And the reason for the half the size is when things went down in 2007, 2008, they did relocate some of the factory finishing to the source of the products, which a lot of the softwood comes out of South America. So they have some, actually have a plant and some finishing down in Chile that they import up here.
Thank you.
Yes, Rose?
Hours of operation
Not sure exact start in the morning, but 7-ish to 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
5 days a week?
Yes.
Have you been in contact with the fire department?
Not yet.
Further question?
Yeah.
Just following up, our sewer use law from the mid-80s requires a hookup if the trunk line's within 150 feet of your property line. As Tom points out, currently 1,000 or more, but it also requires a later hookup if the line does come to the property later on.
Just one further question, any outdoor storage of material?
No, there isn't, because everything needs to be moisture controlled and temperature controlled. So for the finishing, so it comes. Most of this stuff is stored inside buildings, and it's coming from Leonard's Drive over here in the building till it's ready to be finished. Stays in the building till it's dry and then shipped. So there is no outside storage whatsoever. And it's the old Osram building over in Maybrook. If you want to, drive by and see, everything is inside. It's kind of commingled there with the bus company, but.
Any particular number of loading bays or docks in the building?
There'll be 3 doors, 3 overhead doors, and there'll be drive-in. There won't be any loading docks. There will be, and they're on the long face and the 2 ends. And it's inbound on the north end. Finished product will come out on the mid door here, but they'll also need at least an additional door for helping to move equipment in and out at time when it's needed. So that is paved and accessible there, but in here, out here. So we've got room for basically 1 trailer to allow for a truck to turn around here, back in, be unloaded, and 2 over here, so that and we don't, not like a warehouse where the docks are every 12 and a half feet. We actually have to be able to move 16, 18 foot long pieces of lumber between the trucks, so we're spacing those 30 or more feet apart and giving plenty of maneuvering room around them.
Any other questions? Yes, Brian.
Is there any customers that would come here, or is it just employees that process?
No, it is strictly wholesale, and it's all by order. I mean, if a customer came there, would be they would just be coming for a tour. So it's not open. There's no retail sales, or so you don't have people coming in to order lumber for their house. They strictly are wholesale to the lumber yards. And just as a, instead of been working with the Rustin since 2001, in late 2001 we built a playground. A playground was built in Walden that many of us were involved in, and Russet Lumber helped us get some lumber, but we had to buy it through Wicks Lumber. Because even for that volunteer project, we could not buy it from them. So they are, they respect their relationships with their retailers. They don't compete with them in any fashion, and even for a volunteer project, playground build, we'll give Wicks a good deal. Don't get us wrong, but you have to buy it from them. So that's my testament that that there's no retail sales.
Okay. What kind of waste materials are generated?
Well, there's no wood debris, except for occasional breakage, which is then just transported out by dumpster. More than likely it'll go to a dumpster at Leonard's Drive. Now the paint product, there is, for the priming, it's all the same color. You get white prime, so there's very little residue. But there will be, at times, at the end of a run, that they'll have to dispose of other colors, if they're doing staining or painting or siding, for example. And that waste, it's a closed loop system with the painting machines. That is run through a filter press to take the solids out so that they can be landfilled. Then they just go out in the trash. They're just at that point just solids, and the liquid is then put into drums, and companies. They have a company that comes in very similar to the like auto dealers and things.
Like Safety Clean.
Like Safety Clean will come in and remove the drums periodically for off-site disposal. So nothing goes into the ground, nothing goes into the storm water. And that was the same operation that they had over on the original site.
Same thing with the staining materials, the oil-based staining?
Yes.
That's all disposed
Yep.
the same way?
Yes. Yeah, they get drummed. They also get pressed so to take the solvents out of the solids, and then the solvents are stored separately. And that was one thing that Ryan just tickled my memory on. Just as far as the deliveries, about once a week they will get like an LDL over the road delivery of supplies. So any office supplies, things like that. All the administrative work is taken care of at 23 Leonard. So they will have the paints and stains delivered, packing materials, wrapping materials, but that's by common carrier and about once a week. So very low traffic, not a huge number of employees, but looking to double what they have now and keep the employees local.
Yes, Rose.
Architectural renderings and color schemes?
We will have those for you.
Okay, will there be any signs on the building or freestanding signs at the driveway?
There may only be well, there'll be obviously a 911 identification on the building, but when they operated the building on the corner, their sign limited to RFF.
Yeah, it wasn't much.
And that's it, because they don't really need to be known out there. All they need to be seen by the drivers with deliveries that are coming in that aren't their own drivers. So even the facility in Maybrook, you'd miss it if you don't. You got to watch for the RFF sign.
Right. Okay, anyone else? Yes, John?
Just one more question, Tom.
Sure, John.
Any deliveries entering or exiting more specifically, we'd like to see go toward 208.
Yes.
Truck traffic. We're trying our darndest to keep the 17K section.
Yes, we understand that. Yep.
Thank you.
We wanted to do a site visit, or are we gonna get arrested by Homeland Security, or?
Just knock on the door, tell them who you are, and there's only a couple guys that work there, and they're really nice guys.
They're all nice guys.
When we were when we were doing the surveying, I did the same thing. I knocked on the door and said, "Hey, listen, I'm gonna have a crew around here. Just let you know." And they have no problem. It's they have emergency response equipment there. They have generators, they have trailers, they got sandbags, they got all sorts of things for that. It's not an armory.
To name a few, right?
Yeah, I got a chance to go over it, and then Tom and I saw each other and we spoke briefly. I asked him about the sewer. He explained it to me. Why he wasn't seeking that force main. Made sense because of the limited number of employees and Rich, you clearing it up with the law. That's terrific. That's terrific. That answers that question of mine. Tom, that subdivision drawing 1 of 1.
Yes.
Is only the smaller drawings, these 40 scale drawings, show the proposed building. But that subdivision drawing 1 of 1, if you could show it on that as well, so we can see the entire site, because that shows
the proposed. Sure.
Because that shows the proposed septic, but if it showed the building and how that operated together with the other building,
sure.
I think would be helpful.
That's not a problem.
I guess my biggest concern is the stormwater pond operating next to the fire pond, maybe the elevation of the fire pond, the normal level. Is that going to be affected in any way? That's what my concern is the fire pond.
Right. We will dig a couple forebays and a permanent pool that will be just below that elevation, but all of our stormwater is going to be above that elevation. And if anything, it's going to be adding water to that pond. And there's a well over on this side that runs fairly regularly, constantly, that supplies water. You'll see there's somewhere over in here, there's a little 4-inch pipe that comes out, and you go back to the 1940s or the early 50s USGS map in this area. There was a pond here. The pond, I'm assuming, was expanded in the late 70s when the whole Montgomery Industrial Park was developed, and they started building this the fire protection system with what was Surface Merchandise, now Staples, down there. So I'm sure that the pond's not lined or anything, so that just constantly fills. There's no outlet structure here, if the town wants a whole pond, I'm sure that my client would be willing to work out a deal with them too.
It's a very muddy bottom. We do drafting drills and cold water rescue drills in there.
The only other thing was the pre-construction notice. I would think you would have to at least do that. I understand the time it takes to get a jurisdictional determination from the Corps of Engineers. Waters of the U.S. is a big thing right now with the president and everything. That's all subject to change or is being changed right now, so I know what you're saying. But getting a pre-construction notification and just clarifying on the map, what is the disturbance to that non-jurisdictional wetland, that what you're calling a non-jurisdictional? Right. Yeah, the building is on it.
Yeah, I realize that yes, it is. It's and in fact, there's about 1/4 acre that we would fill in that area for, not so much for the building, but to provide access around the building for fire services in particular.
Okay.
So we went out, I can't remember what the distance was, 20 feet or so, and then graded down. So most of that fill is associated with just grading around the building rather than the building itself. And that was pushing it over that way was a almost a directive by Frats to get everything hard, all impervious surfaces out of that adjacent area. So that's why we moved it over here.
All right, thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, board, anything else? Okay, we have comments? Yes, ma'am.
Just, Andrew's gonna do a joint park inspection on this, right? Assuming that we're gonna need to do a soil inspection.
Soil testing will have to be done.
Yep.
Soil testing, the stormwater will need to be worked out. And there are comments from both Andrew and Bonnie that we will get to you.
Okay, thank you.
And we'll wait your next submittal.
So if we,
Just on the secret process, I think one of the comments you'll see to get the EAF cleaned up a little bit with property owners and then the board could circulate. I'm a little reluctant to have you start secret tonight with nothing to circulate, but I would urge you at your next meeting what the applicant needs to be done on.
Right, we'll have the paperwork in order and we can circulate.
I'm thinking it's unlisted. Thinking, and it'll be up to the board whether you want to coordinate review. You don't have to on an unlisted action. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. So that would be the next task for the board.
I would ask that the board place that on the next agenda. We'll get the revised EAF. We'll take a look at any comments that Bonnie or Andrew may have had that pertain to that as well, and get that taken care of in the next couple of days and get it over to you.
Okay, great.
I tend to agree with Rich, because I looked at the property and relations districts, et cetera, so it looks to be under unlisted action. It's not as many thresholds. I had a few just minor comments, they're in my memo. One, just making sure the bulk table covers both lots, make sure that.
Do a separate column for each on the subdivision plan.
Yep, I had the same comments about the isolated wetland. I was out there, it seemed like you had flagged it, so.
Yes, yes.
The boundaries are known. I thought you did a great job as far as the narrative of what's going to happen. And it'd be useful to actually, all that you've said, include in the narrative, because that can get attached to a special use permit, just to know what's gonna happen there. Were you gonna have any venting systems?
Just the minimum that's required under the code for the HVAC for makeup air.
Venting without? Venting without?
Yeah, well, there's a I think it's a 10% makeup air that's required for under the mechanical code, and that would be the limit of it. They've got plenty of experience with the DEC and the air division, and they don't meet any of the standards for air emissions.
Okay, and then,
They don't exceed any of the parameters, let me say that. They meet all of the standards for air quality. They don't exceed any parameters.
I would just look at the parking lot to the north relative to the lot line, because it adjoins a residential zoning district, and I believe the transition area is required of 50 feet.
Okay.
So I don't know that the parking can extend into that 50 feet, if that's the case. And just lighting levels, because of your elevation relative to the residential neighborhood to the northwest, I think you have to be careful, how elevated that is, and again, whether residents in the back will be able to see the, in there, so just be mindful of that. In general, it looks like the drainage from the old RFF facility is actually going to and discharging to that wetland.
Right.
So, I don't know, and this is something for Rich, whether between the septics and drainage basins draining to an off-site other property, whether there's some kind of easements or notes or something that has to be added to allow that to happen in the future, especially if the properties don't remain in the same location.
Right, which they likely will not in the future, so they'll be separated.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mike.
Very good. Yes.
We'd like to come up and just take a look at the map as our property. I want to see where our property lines are in relationship to what you're discussing. I can't see anything.
There will be a modification to this plan at some point. We're not anywhere close to a public hearing on this yet.
Oh, but can I come up and look at the map just to take a quick look?
I don't mind if you look at it for
Sure,
a few minutes.
sure. I didn't really want to get into a discussion. Thanks. So I just want to see where. So. You know where Morris is?
This one, I think, is.
No, this is Morris.
Okay.
This is where we are.
Oh, okay.
So now you.
This one range runs so we can control the rate and source the water so that it doesn't affect the properties.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Same deal.
Okay, thanks. Okay, next this evening we have 915 17K Skibitsky Moderno. We have some questions for the applicant. There's a couple of items. We had just received a memo this evening from our noise consultant. I don't think we've even seen that yet. Ryan, did you have a couple of questions involved with the project?
Yeah, I mean, most of my concerns at this point are related to the sequencing and phasing of the construction of the buildings, and if both buildings actually get built on what order and that kind of stuff. I did have a bunch of notes on the neg deck and stuff as well. I don't know if you want to get into that.
Yeah, I think if we could start with some questions that relevant to this, we can get some clarifications.
I mean, first, I know we got an email from Larry last week about the berm would be constructed first before any buildings were constructed, I believe. Is that correct?
It would be part of the initial construction, simultaneously with the grading that's associated with both of the buildings. As I've stated before, we do need material from Lot 2 to raise Lot 1. So during that construction of that movement of the earth, we would construct the berm. Yes.
And that's just the earth portion of the berm, right? The landscape complete.
That's what we've asked for, because of the size and type of tree that's proposed to be planted in the berms. We do ask that the actual vegetation be constructed or be installed when Lot 2 is being built. So if Lot 1 is built, the berm will be there, the physical earth berm will be there. The landscaping won't be installed until Lot 2, the building on Lot 2 is built.
And then on today's correspondence from, I think, Creighton Manning, they recommended extending the berm, so that would be, I guess, a condition?
Yes, so what they were looking at was potential noise impacts to the residences on Lakeview Drive. And it was decided that the landscaping berm should be extended an additional 20 feet from where it currently is. And the applicant has agreed to that. Obviously, with that coming in today, we didn't have any opportunity to revise it, but we will extend it in the same manner as proposed. To be quite honest, the reason that we stopped it where it was is because that's where the limitation of the grading was being proposed. We weren't going to remove, we didn't have any plans to remove vegetation. You know, preservation of existing vegetation is really what it came down to. So the applicant has no issue with it extending that front berm. And obviously there's 2 berms on the site, but what we're talking about is the berm along 17K. So it would just be a simple extension in the westerly direction, 20 feet.
So does that bring it right to the wetland buffer, or is it halfway there, or what's the?
It's about halfway there.
Okay.
The base of the berm, where it goes back to natural grade, would be about halfway between where the buffer is now and the berm.
Okay, and then, I mean, it's not that much further, but the consultant's recommending the berm over the existing vegetation because it's disturbed. Is that what the reasoning is, or will the vegetation remain in front of the berm in that location?
Yeah, the existing vegetation would remain in front of the berm, but this is an actual physical obstruction between the noise source and the residents, as opposed to a vegetative obstruction. So it's more effective at attenuating noise or deflecting noise.
So, I mean, I guess my real concern is, say lot, I keep forgetting the lot numbers, but I think it's lot 1 is constructed in 2020 or 2021, and then the economy falls apart again, and then in 2026 we still don't have lot 2 constructed. Is there some kind of time frame in there where we could assume that the landscaping would be installed and established, you know, with the absence of lot 2 being constructed?
Joe Alesso is saying yes.
I don't know what everybody's feelings is on that. I don't know if you guys.
There'd have to be some time frame on that.
In the resolution.
If upon C of O on lot 1, I mean, we have to work out the details. I mean, we just, you know, this is within a year of the CO on lot 1, plant the trees on the berm.
I mean, a year goes pretty quick, Fred, so I don't know if maybe a year is too aggressive.
2 years?
Also keep in mind that these aren't unvegetated berms, that they're gonna be planted they're gonna be stabilized.
Right.
So you're gonna start getting natural growth of, within a year's time, you're gonna start getting that natural growth of rushes and things that you would naturally see in a meadow.
Okay.
So it's not like it's completely unvegetated. So, you know, we're not planting, what we're asking for is not to plant the large evergreen trees that's been requested by the board. I don't, this isn't my area of expertise, but I don't know about the viability of planting an evergreen tree that large in a constructed berm without irrigation, the survivability of it. And that's what I'm most concerned with. You know, if the board, obviously the applicant is agreeable to it, but from a personal standpoint, that's my concern, is that we're gonna be fighting.
Keeping them alive.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, I gotta just speak to this. You have other conditions in your approval that are aimed to the purpose of the berm, which is noise attenuation. The other conditions that you have and controls on this is if there is noise being generated, which is in excess of the thresholds that we presented in our noise study, we have committed to then constructing additional noise attenuation, which would include the plantings, may include a sound wall, sound barrier, may include other things that are in that. So having heard what Larry said and the possibility that we plant these trees and then they die from desiccation, I think the other conditions that are built into this approval probably satisfy your concern. Because the whole noise issue, and I don't mean to downplay it, but it's based on the assumption that there's going to be noise here that's generated beyond tolerable limits, and you really don't have anything that proves that yet. You may, again, so you have conditions to address it, so I think putting a time limit on the construction that's being requested might frankly not make a lot of sense because you have other controls for this.
Yes, Andrew?
Brian, to what you were speaking about, and Larry, the end of the road where it used to go out to 17K, you now have the berm. That's shown, that section of the berm is shown in the phase 1 construction. That the road would, that portion of the berm would be constructed, that's at the end of the road. Where the berm is not going to be constructed, where the pad of that building is, if Lot 2 was not built, the building closest to 17K, that's at about elevation 435. Down where you're doing the berm, you're building the berm where it's existing about 420. So you're lifting that way up, and then you have the natural earth that's already high. Does that help you just see?
Just trying to follow you here.
So just to further that, we are committing to revising the SWIP sequencing plan, as we've shown in the plans, to construct the berm early on in the process. And the cross sections that were submitted to Mazer early this afternoon for review illustrates the berm's effectiveness of preventing noise from traveling from the area accessing the loading area of Lot 2. It's basically, we chose a point what we felt was the nearest, the most impactful location, which is really at the throat of the loading dock entrance, and how that would potentially affect the houses on Lakeview. And that's really where from a physical standpoint, without vegetation on it, the noise, noise travels in a linear path until it hits something. And the berm itself was found to, just the physical earth berm was found to prevent that from happening. So the vegetation, while I understand the concerns, if you're talking about a visual standpoint, that's a different matter. But if you're talking about noise attenuation, the physical berm itself, I believe, will adequately address that.
Brian, did you even get to see that, what we got today?
I was reading it during dinner.
You did? Okay.
Larry led into my next point, was the lighting. I know Bill looked at this pretty hard, and berm and the buildings were all taken into account on that. But that's another question with the sequencing. If there's unshielded fixtures or wall packs on Lot 1, and I know we got a lot of cross sections and things like that, but I mean that may be another issue that we may need to incorporate into the resolution, screening, landscaping, etc. I don't know what everybody else feels about that.
Well, the building, Lot 2 is also a substantial part of noise ventilation.
Right, and that may be a question, because like I said, I was reading that noise thing during dinner. I don't know if that memo accounted for the building not being there. Andrew or Larry, maybe clarify that?
I can tell you my noise engineer signed off on it today. I can't get into the specifics.
I know the cross sections that were taken in that, I believe, went across the parking lot. That's what you were showing? Yes. So I guess that's the line of sight, is that correct?
Yeah, it's basically, what we were looking at was a point here, as the noise source. And then we were looking at 2 points of potential impact here and here. So a linear path from the noise source to the recipient. So that's what we were looking at, and that's why this berm was basically from the noise source to the westerly recipient it just skirted right past that end of the berm, so we were extending it 20 feet to make up that, to continue that through. Regarding lighting, I know that Bill has always been extremely diligent about making sure that no fixtures are unshielded. So all the fixtures are shielded. The wall packs are downward facing, even to the point where they're extra shielded. So as far as visual impacts of lighting, specifically along 17K, if Lot 1 was built, there would be no spillover of light from what would be necessary to be built on Lot 1 onto 17K. Not only from physically, it's the throw of the light can't get there, but also the elevation difference between the two areas. The light would be very low in relationship to the 17K elevations.
The top of the berm is roughly 430.
432.
432. And the floor on lot 1, or 416?
416.8.
Okay. So the floor is in.
That's the floor. So that's the finished floor elevation.
Right.
Right in the loading area is 412, so it's another 4 feet lower. So it's almost it's 19.2 feet lower than the berm will be. Physical elevation.
So with the berm there, you won't see the top of the trucks?
No, I don't believe so.
You have to be on top of it. Anything else?
The other question we had at the last workshop meeting, I think, was the shared improvements. I think there was supposed to be some draft language put together for that. I don't know, Rich, maybe talk to the applicant or something on that?
I think it's expressed as a condition, because obviously something has to be developed by the applicant, I believe not only for access, but utilities, if I'm not mistaken, with a shared well water. And that would have to go with the subdivision map to be recorded. So the chair wouldn't be signing a plat until the applicant submitted something, and we generally don't tell them how to divide it up as long as it equals 100%.
Right.
So we'll look for the applicant to take a stab at that, but that can be a condition.
So they're just blanket cross easements?
I wouldn't expect anything too out of the ordinary.
Okay. I know we also talked about hours of operation. I think most of that was focused on 2 warehouse buildings. But with the lot 3, currently it's an office, we don't quite know what it's gonna be. That has to come back for site plan approval, is that correct?
Well, the way it's been proposed, that's been fully engineered. I asked Andrew that question Friday. What I don't think the board ever really saw, because the focus was not on that building, were any architecturals or elevations. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we ever asked nor were supplied with what this small building's gonna look like. So the draft documents call for that to be a site, that's not a special use permit, by the way. A simple office is a site plan only in the I-3. Call for that to be approved either by the board or by Mazer before the chair can sign the site plan. Didn't quite know how to handle that. It's been kind of the forgotten child in the room. Right. The emphasis has been on the warehouses.
So if someone were to come in with a small office, like say Tom Ollie wanted to come in here and open up shop, could he come in and apply for a building permit for that lot? We just take a site plan?
As long as the final conditions as proposed, nothing's been done yet, of elevations and renderings, because the use itself, their office is incorporated in the whole engineering. By the way, we were just talking about 1,000 square foot office building, as opposed to, there was some talk of a contractor storage yard. That would require a special use permit. It seemed like we were asking the applicant a year ago to show some use of that lot. And I think they did what we asked them to do. They showed a use. I'm not sure it was front and center in their plans. Jump in, guys.
Yeah. What you're stating is accurate. We don't, the the building that's shown on there is modest in nature, 1,000 square feet. But I don't believe that, that lot 3 would ever be the first to be built on. The necessary improvements to make that happen would be cost prohibitive. I think it's more of an accessory to one of the other uses. Right. Not accessory, but it would come after that. With that said, you could see an applicant come in, but we have shown an office building. It's something different, and certainly the board would have to correct me if I'm wrong, Rich, but anything other than an office building would have to come in before the board and make an application, regardless of what the use would be. So, I don't know if that's.
I agree. Okay, I have a couple more minutes here.
Sure.
Okay. The landfill C&D monitoring, I know Andrew poured over that quite a bit. But I know the DEC requires written notification that someone's taking over a dam per se. They require written notification to potential purchasers of, I'm guessing, at least lot 3 and also maybe lot 1 and lot 2, that there used to be C&D landfill on former condition of that property.
I think it would just be a transfer of who's responsible for the recording. Lots 1 and 2 were intentionally excluded from the area of remediation and monitoring. So lot 3 is really would be the sole lot that would be obligated to continue that monitoring.
Is that individual or is that entity? Is it required to be a person or can it be?
It can be
91517 KLLC.
No, I mean right now it's the Skibitskis. It's a person. It could be either or, as long as the responsible party is completing the testing as required in the consent order.
I don't know if that was addressed in our approval resolution or not. Maybe question for Rich.
We certainly point out the existence of the landfill, just in the nature of disclosure in case some stranger who hasn't been following this process. We indicate DEC continues to monitor. We don't necessarily get into notifying DEC any more than their requirements.
Well, these proposed documents should follow the chain of title.
They should, but I can't guarantee that they will. Now, what clearly will follow the chain is the plat with the notes on the plat.
Yeah.
That will clearly be in the chain of title. I wouldn't assume your approval documents will get to the county clerk. In fact, don't assume.
And those notes are on the map, on the plat, about the area.
I suspect they are, but Bonnie mentioned to me earlier this evening, it's a good point, that maybe there should be a general condition of final note language approval before the chair signs them out, not only as to the landfill, but as to all issues. I think you may have caught something on the note that could have been improved in its wording. I don't agree with that.
Yes.
And that's typical, and I like that general condition, because there ought to be someone that looks at every note on every sheet before it gets a record. Not to change it substantively, but to make sure it's accurate, and perhaps if the landfill isn't prominent, I think it must be on there. Don't you note the landfill all over the place?
It's on multiple sheets in multiple areas, specifically on the, if you're talking about the subdivision plat, it says see note 7. Note 7 says, okay, there's a landfill on the property. And it even notes, we note location of cap C&D landfill, and we also say limits of remediation fill, see note 7, also note 7. And then note 7 states that it is, there is a C&D, cap C&D landfill on it. We don't make any reference to monitoring on it. But as Rich said, if that's something that needs to be incorporated into the map note, I don't think anybody would take us out.
all the monitoring wells are on lot 3, is that right?
Excuse me, the DEC today told me monitoring still must continue. Twice a year, so you know that's gonna be ongoing, and
Correct.
good question, who's gonna pay for it, who's gonna do that in years coming?
That's been our question.
Okay, just saying, because I just confirmed it again today.
Thank you.
So, just from my own knowledge, chain of title on the subdivision is gonna go, I'm assuming the applicant will take control of the property if they don't already have it now. They file the maps, they become the owner of all 3 lots.
Don't assume that.
What's the typical process?
We don't generally, the board approves the subdivision and we don't, I'm not sure it's any of our business to periodically find out who bought what lot, who retained what lot.
No, I'm not saying that, I'm just saying that when someone's gonna take over this property, when they subdivide it, and then that person will be the owner of lot 3, lot 2, and lot 1 for at least 24 hours, I assume.
Okay.
So, at what point does the DEC get notified who's the responsible party for monitoring the landfill?
I think they'll continue to pursue the current record owners, who I believe are the estates of Skibitsky, until such time as they're shown that they're no longer the record owners.
It's the responsibility of the, either the new owner to notify DEC or the Skibitskys would notify.
There's a covenant over this that encumbers the title, correct?
When you say a covenant.
I mean, there's something filed at the county that says that this is what it is, that it's a capped landfill?
I don't know that the order on consent that we've got a copy of and looked at heavily, I'm not sure that's recorded with the county. It's not a title document. Maybe it is recorded, but I don't think it would have to be.
What I'm getting at is if you could close on this, that should come up in a title report, but where would it be?
Right there on that map.
On that map, and the map would show that there's a document.
It would also show up in any environmental report.
That a title company would have done in order to.
The title company wouldn't, but you would do it as part of your due diligence in purchasing the property. It's a requirement of most banks.
Richard, I also believe when you read the order, it makes reference to order having to be referred to in any deed conveying the premises. So it's going to turn up in that subsequent deed going to the record. In fact, it'll show up in the deed into our client if we ultimately take title to the premises. So there's your chain of title.
Yeah,
and the order, by the way, it runs with the land. It's not particular to the Skibitskys. That order applies to this land, regardless of who owns it. They're going to be subject to the terms of the order.
Okay. Yes.
No, I don't want to interrupt you. You probably have
I just wanted to.
Okay.
I know we talked about, this is probably my last substantive comment, I believe, but we talked about the architecturals and the windows on lot 2 facing 17K. They would look like windows, but they wouldn't be translucent or transparent. They would be opaque and not transmit light at night.
Correct.
Okay. And then we all saw those architectural renderings. I just want to make sure that those on 17K didn't transmit light at night.
There's also questions on whether or not they would open those upper windows.
Right.
It's the same. No, they would not.
Okay. So other than that, I don't know where we're going next, but I'd like to, I know we're at the end of our rope here with the times.
Right.
But I was hoping the applicant might consider deferring this until the next meeting. It's because we got the neg deck and resolution today.
We got
We also have the full board.
the questions that we've had on the sound. We finally got in resolution 2 from the applicant, and we've reviewed them. But I haven't even seen the responses to our last review and then our responses back. That just came in today. That came here from work.
Yeah, just backing up, I had a question. I understand there's another Creighton Manning memo, am I right? that came in at 5 o'clock today that I haven't
The
seen?
Creighton Manning memo was based upon our last review, and then that Creighton Manning memo was looked at by your office, Lee. Is that-
Today.
So today, that review from Creighton Manning came in maybe this morning?
It was later than that.
Late morning, early afternoon.
Yeah,
Okay, so
we had
today.
like a 10 o'clock conference call from my office and Creighton Manning's with my noise expert on.
I'm just trying to catch up. So today, there were 2 memoranda, one from Creighton Manning, and later in the day, one from Mazer.
Mazer did a memo on an original Creighton Manning study. We talked about it this morning, what needed to happen. Creighton Manning did those changes, submitted it today, and our guy looked at it and signed off on it. That's what happened. Was that, will we do it again?
No,
we get it.
About 4 o'clock.
We were.
Yeah, about 4, it was the end of the day.
So we were drafting approval docs on Friday and revising them today, and I didn't know that.
And talking about neg decks.
That exercise
Yeah.
was happening while we
Oh,
were
yeah.
doing our thing, and one of the conditions was a deferral to Mazer to sign off on the Creighton Manning material
That's right.
that we had from late last week.
Give it a final review, and we were able to sign off on it, yes.
And I don't know where that, it's just, again, it's your typical.
But we saw it.
Mr.
I don't know
Chair,
if
if I
the
might.
board saw it.
Yes.
Yeah.
What Mr. Hoyt just made reference to was a final sign-off from Mazer. And the upshot on the noise was simply that if the berm was extended the 20 feet to the north, they signed off on the noise. And so I believe that satisfies the condition that Mr. Hoyt just made reference to. It's been satisfied, it's been signed off on, provided our plans show the extension of the berm by the 20 feet. And that can be a condition of final, it seems to me.
So I'm sorry, I'm a step late here, but it's kind of hard to keep up. As of Friday, I saw a Mazer comment that said this noise might actually be as much as 4.8 OBL over, and that was over the limits of where 3 and under is deemed to be imperceptible.
Correct.
So my question is, are we any way, shape, or form gonna get over that 3 number? Because Creighton Manning said we're not gonna exceed 3. You guys later on said, well, you might actually be 4.8. Is today's work and the berm extension and whatever else happened get us back down to 3 and 8?
I can't answer that. I'm not that expert, Rich, and I think that, the board would have to look at the documents that were finally, that everything was final around 4 o'clock, 4:30 today, so.
We don't like to do business this way. Here's the thing, there was a whole column of numbers missing that got filled in also.
Today.
Yes. And there were 3 or 4 items in that report, and it could all be related to the berm and that 4.8 number over the decibel level. But we haven't seen any of this. Do you want to take 5? We're going to take 5 minutes and discuss this, please. Please bear with us.
Are you breathing back here? It's still wrong. I said, are you breathing? Come down here. They already had a meeting before the meeting.
That's why I can't think, I'm sorry. I couldn't think tonight when you asked me to come up. I wish I could think of what you could think.
You're way ahead of me, man.
I was there right 10 o'clock this morning and we got until 11:30. And I had the transcript reports were saying what they weren't saying. And then I knew today, I just had to get it written before the end of the day and then dumped it again and trying to wait. I'm just thinking. They should
John,
just.
we still have 4 more topics. Can't go
They say that the table says so they had documents and they were doing, and that's trivial. It's trivial. Page 5, they're actually.
What's happened here, right?
Oh, yeah. I did it by him, a couple nights ago.
117.
Yeah.
By Harmony Lane.
Right, this is back in 1917. They're talking about this building on 17, right? Then they go and further define, and they said, well, if we were to talk about if we were to build a building that the 17K lot, which not protect the building owner who's to the west. The only thing to the west is not and so when you go to that, it's right here.
Our press conference with Sussman never goes on air. It was on tag. So Sussman saying this one, I only can watch half of the saying to the west about your meeting. So we're really in this so how did it make mistakes? Construct the second Barbara was on the record never blocked the building of construction. Unless the adjacent 17K, because they're also in fact lot 3 is beyond the physical limit of the proposed house in 17K. They also state that building 2 is defined to the west as building number 2 is loading zone. Yet as the plan submitted, West Building has no loading zone. The site is not introducing for the evaluation of the that includes I know we were proposed in 17K, that's and then the red line, you know, that this building, so the building that references they took right, I'm sorry. That's right, okay, so they're saying they took here, that's a lot closer, they said 70 feet, this is 100 feet. Referencing the building.
Try to keep them.
Anyway, they go to trucks and they go blah, 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 and just they're the same thing because both locations have the same which typically indicates the end of the sound, and the house to the north is located farther away than the site, blah, blah, blah. Well, it's clear because the town the homes on the line is faced to Lakeview Drive,
and rest on the east and the west side of Lakeview Drive, not north and south of it. Should the writing refer to the application to use fees analysis and be justified, then we must understand that the north side of Lakeview Drive would be those closest to common place. It's certainly not the same as in the least. This is very relevant because it seems to be the basis for no. What I understand. We asked in the letter. He said, we're asking for 24/7. I get it. Then therefore, we need to study that's accurate in the valley. Because they only took the average 6 to 11 at night.
Oh, yeah.
And there was no night study. So we said, nighttime study and weekends. No, that was their first analysis. Then they came back and pushed for more. They didn't because they said, you're asking for so we need to this open, open hole, jump in. So what they did is they took the nighttime analysis of 8 p.m. to 8 in the morning. I don't know how to stay on Tuesday. Really? And the daytime representation, it was on a Sunday, it was daytime. And it's just fine, it's pleasure. They're quiet or late Sunday night. That's a weekend. Now, weekend is not a Monday to a Tuesday morning, and that's the overnight hours they select. Now, understand, vacation will not be enough. If you have all of the decibel scale, and the noise you know what? I'm not saying just do a great job. And I have a new grandson. I know all these areas work. Everything that's assigned in there. Your leg is and it's not that I know. This is the thing. Nobody knows the use. So it's all it's speculative build. So if it's but so now you have it's only based on theoretical, but we have to understand in reality. So and you should elevate it like you're saying, oh, how many trucks are going to come in. And their statement, and their study, and I understand it based on what they're looking at, and then my parameters. I guess you're on somebody's neck.
When was there one? Was there a
You're saying that there's only going to be maybe 1 or 2 trucks that will simultaneously coalesce within this coast, and that there's momentarily conversions into I mean, I work with freight. I work at the airport with freight. And they're saying, oh, well, that's not just an hour span. I can agree to but I can disagree with you.
This whole thing was fixed.
The moratorium, because you know what? If they want to put a forecast down on the local level, and they want to put an extra hub at the top, so they're cohesively, either community, a rail trail, farmer's museum or sewer, you go for it, man, I'll be your first customer. I'll ask you. I mean, really. But you don't have to worry.
O'clock in the morning, it was Australia. Finally, even had some 7 o'clock.
And you have
You can smile. You're still human.
Accused of that before.
That's a good accusation. You think I'm not stressed? You're affecting my life directly. That's my house right across the street. And I do not want you not to perceive it as positive. At the same time, I beg your pardon. I'm not a fool. I worked in cargo. I worked at the airport. I went around trucking. I worked in Bound. I understand, and this is fact. So you're asking me to take your word of these things that are hypothetical. I worked in research that only works when you're trying to make up things, facts. And we don't know how many jobs we know that. I wish y'all would just really honestly make an accident. You don't believe me? I am serious. Just think of the warehouse workers. They have a place to go get when you have a mind. I'm serious though. Invest in that. I beg you. I can do it. You know what? We're too funny and serious. People over it's like they were trash. I could live with that. With the right damn here, I don't know why. Go ahead, take it.
Right.
Well, they're open. I didn't know that was legal, but public hearings open and closed, so.
I couldn't see that, so I moved over here.
I moved over here, I saw that. Sideboards on the public discussion.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as me. Is there notes? Can we read the notes?
Yeah.
Did you read? May I approach without being rude? You're not allowed to talk. Did you read? Whatever today. Did you read it? You should be able to snap that in about 30 seconds. So they will. And you're like,
This is what I brought. Chairman Fred.
There you go, please. I think that's the one.
Well, yeah, we have one sort of plan over there.
Yes, it is, okay. Yeah, but good for Rosie, because I will find out. And I also find some anonymous that I have
Before they put up.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. I wonder if it's an email. That's okay. He's very So that night, they stayed up in. So then tonight, I'm like, okay, I can just do it. So she hit it in my other shirt. She said,
No, I'm just trying to be so many
yes, but you know what? They're all women, so whoa.
Trouble, trouble, and trouble.
I'm a man in like a roll for trouble. And I actually had to
You get an idea what the medium is for those
I love that scar.
Thank you. It was a Christmas present from about 2 years ago. I'm finally wearing it.
It looks really nice with the shirt too.
Well, the colors. You know, I said, why not? And plus two, this air conditioning is freezing.
Yeah, I was feeling it.
He was shaking, my hair was standing up.
Scary stuff. Yeah. So distressing, tree.
So now, I 207.
You have rock top, you have rock top, that's where's the line? Station where it became.
Yeah, that crossing right there.
Because I know New Windsor, all the way down with Rock Tower, back on the roads, because I family would live back there. That's New Windsor.
I think that's the context.
You're good, right?
Just west of the south side of 207. I drove by there at night. It was a horse farm. Yeah, it was.
You want to know what do horses deliver after the process?
Nice green grass. It's 3% of the population of the place.
I think we just need to pray the next generation is leading it, like over in the 20s and for leading.
Hindsight is everything. Yes. They were going to put it in that. Yeah, a friend of mine put in what's organized. And really has no developed. Had small business that in mind.
No, was it good? You didn't? Yes, I did. I saw the movie.
You wish you were back on now.
Not as much as I would have it first thing in the morning.
Was that you or somebody saying? So like $3,000.
Graphically, it's easier graphically. You know? Well, I got everything. I read the whole word of God. I was. Looking at the elevations, and I'm saying the trucks are below. The trucks are 13 and a half foot high. Total height, they're below the berm. Yeah. For me.
No, I know.
I'm not the noise expert, but all the noise sources are well below the berm.
Me too. I'm glad that I ate before I came. They just don't.
They can bounce.
They can go transverse, right? They just don't go along and otherwise.
Yeah.
But when I participated down here in there, it was when they declared that on 17K, Shield went to the west. East Ryan is in the west, called 17K. That's what they stated. I'll just put my jacket on. That's what I stated. They state in their report to you. How can we accept and complete that it is not to the west?
Yeah, I don't know.
I guess that's
when somebody quotes, this word is wrong in a report. I appreciate what you're saying. I'm looking at the whole thing, and I'm looking at what really happens. Yeah,
but I would never put you in my laboratory except the documents that were so incorrect. And I don't mean that you can do all that you have, because I understand when somebody speaks and says shoe and they really were yelling at me. No, I get that. These documents
documents, especially one update. It gets done, and then it takes this and this. October, you got 60 days to make a decision.
I'm just not seeing them, like. My chair fell apart. Look at this.
What used to be mine?
If I told you, and I handed you a check for $1,000, this is business, this is not. I would fire you if I did stuff like that. There would be no doctor that would ever trust my research report.
We would not be happy doing this business.
I would be happy, but I would be so
Looking
vague.
at,
60 days, and they gave us an extension.
My friend goes, oh, you're such a little back in the 80s. I said,
No, it's, what has to be done
warm
is.
enough. It was good. I was kind
Not that.
I wouldn't get too close to the edge. That.
I'm sure we could do it.
We won't go there, Fred. We're not gonna go there.
I happen to know, I was
That's fine, Rob.
That's for one. With a salad tonight. We made a Caesar salad. We made a Caesar salad. In all the restaurants are closed.
I know, right? It's a long way down. It's got out back in there.
Anyway, what is the thing they said? Make a right onto, feel like it's safe, but and then take Freetown Highway. I think it goes to the end of Freetown, make a right. Yeah, I got it. No, I think it's.
Yes.
Yeah, so we're going to just walk out here.
No, no.
Yes. Yeah, like, yes, it's a work of art. And then I decided to yeah, and then, you know, when you're up there, so that's the tomato.
That's why it's so special.
It's very nice. Have you gone to one in, why don't we request the hours? We went to, but they did a long time, which is You were there, he was very good. I'm on the 23rd, I fully regret. Oh, the red cabbage. Oh, I love it. That's good. I love it was for Saturday. But it's causing them to look at it over here. Yeah, take a look at it, it's very good. I mean, I think they're, well, I'm trying to.
We've all had easier ones.
Yeah, that's downstairs. We just had dinner guys in any position, so.
Still crazy. It's good. It's good, you know. There's enough for everyone.
Oh, yeah.
There's a hotel, there's a retail, right outside of West Point. Right outside of West Point. It's like when you want to fire, after you get done with it, you like to mix the water. This goes for 35 years. Oh my God. I said to him the other day, look, you got a choice. Keep sending emails, and I read them, and nothing gets done. Or I leave you emails and I just say, all right, if something important, call me, and we actually do the work. Choose. It'll be transformed. Somebody in the hotel, it's down right outside. So somebody's doing something there. So the hotel has its own justice doing that. So I think between the two, that somebody else is doing this and that. I think 70 rooms.
It's been crazy.
I just dropped off my son down there, so now I'm gonna hang out for a couple of days or something. There's never any space for games, of course. Folks, you just had on 9W, yes.
We order on the phone, but again, you know, that's in reality.
The store, 7/10 of an acre, they got them to do a, I don't know who hired them to do a drainage study on 7/10 of an acre. It's all developed now, it's urban, and then you can put the hotels in. It's got like, he came to the conclusion it was like 3,000 square feet of new impervious, and that's going to be this much of a change. I mean, yeah. So now we're dealing with that. It's one of the planning board members locked on to it. Stormwater planters in the urban area. So what we're going to have is pavement and building. So, you know. Right. They had a great area. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, bring it. Right at the door. Yeah, we did. I met a guy down there. He's got a site. He was messing around with it. Right at the door. Right at the door.
Yeah, then stick with it.
I think they just saw me. Well,
you can see the applicants there.
well, they're gonna think I'm like totally spying on them. Put it right there. They saw me.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's what you're trying to resist. Resist.
Okay, I guess we're all set. All right. Thanks everyone for bearing with us. Board, are there any other comments on this application? Right. Okay. All right, I think we've covered everything pretty well. What we've decided to do is to table this matter. We're gonna bring it back up at our workshop Wednesday, February 5th, 2nd, 6th. Right? It's the 5th, February 5th, and a decision will be rendered then. And it's a week from this Wednesday, in this room, 9 in the morning, and that's a game plan, okay, for everybody's information. That'll give us over a week to look over these documents and what's been drafted, make any revisions, and we should be in much better shape. I appreciate everybody's patience. Okay, thank you.
Very much so. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Axe throwing. Man, let's do it. Warehouse below, axe thrower above.
Yeah, we do. Well, two.
Excuse me, I just have one quick one. Did you say you were gonna make a decision at the work session? How you doing?
It's a public meeting, it's a notice
Okay.
meeting.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, I just,
We've
I
done it for an
didn't hear-
extension if we run
Yeah.
out of time, Barbara.
yeah,
but
I
we-
didn't hear you correctly.
No, it's
That's
at the
all.
workshop.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, next this evening, Hans and Montgomery, New York State Route 17K, 14-lot major subdivision with one commercial lot. Extension request of a conditional final approval. February 11th of 2010, the approval was reinstated. Been 39 90-day extensions granted.
Good night.
Any discussion on the pond?
Have a great day.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to grant another 90-day extension out until April 21st of 2020. Motion by Rose, seconded by Rich. All those in favor signify by saying aye. And last but not least, a motion to adjourn.
Fred, do we make a motion to move 915 17K, or do we not need one?
I don't think we need one, just announce it, because we weren't,
It's not a public hearing.
it's not a public hearing continuation.
Did we need, the applicant, I guess they concurred with that. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, seconded by Rose. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Second.